This is MRN Out Loud, brought to you by Hercules Tires.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of MRN Out Loud. I'm Woody Cain. A very special program for you this week as we're going to be talking about two efforts that are near and dear to the hearts of many folks all across the country. First up, Sherry Pollex is back with us. She'll be talking about the Honor a Cancer Hero program, in which you could find your name above the door of one of your favorite drivers at an upcoming race. She's here representing both the Martin Truex Jr Foundation and working with the NASCAR Foundation in this effort. A little bit later on, we'll chat with Cliff Chanin from the 9/11 Memorial as we get ready to remember that milestone 20 years ago coming up this weekend at Richmond. But first, the playoff rounds of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series are here. There are just 3 races left in the season. 10 drivers are competing in the playoffs for the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Championship. Catch all the action and the iRacing Countdown to Green at enascar.com/live. Go to iRacing.com for all the latest news, featured videos, and more information on the world of iRacing. This iRacing update is brought to you by Logitech G. Through design, engineering, and a love of driving games, the Logitech G923 takes racing simulation to another level. Logitech G, the official wheels and pedals of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Sherry Pollex is up next.
Gamers, start your engines. Meet the next generation of racing wheels. The award-winning Logitech G design is re-engineered to dial into your game physics, delivering unprecedented realism. Feel every shift, drift, and hairpin turn like never before. Our latest innovation in force feedback technology connects directly to endgame simulation engines and physics to produce higher fidelity, real-time responses. Through design, engineering, and the love of driving games, Logitech G takes racing simulation to another level. Go to logitechg.com.
Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there no matter where the road takes you. Go to HerculesTires.com. There you can find the nearest authorized Hercules retail location to you. Plus, you can use the tire tracker to find out which Hercules tire fits your vehicle the best. That's HerculesTires.com. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
Sherry Pollex is with us as the Martin Truex Jr Foundation's co-founder, and others get set to do the same program we talked about 1 year ago. It's the Honor a Cancer Hero program. Sherry, first, welcome back to the program. And a year ago when we talked about this, it was sort of a shift from what you guys had already planned to do at the Martin Truex Jr Foundation. And now it was so successful, I guess you've brought it back.
Yeah, 2020 obviously created a lot of challenges for nonprofits because of COVID. So we kind of had to pivot all of our initiatives that year. We weren't able to do Catwalk, which was, a huge blow to our foundation because it raises so much money. So the girls at the office, Lisa and Jill, do a great job for the Martin Truex Jr Foundation. And they got together with the NASCAR Foundation and came up with this idea of having this Honor a Cancer Hero program, where fans could come in and buy the names above the cars. So last year was the first year we did it, and we were shocked at how many people ended up bidding on cars. It was incredible. We ended up doing a little over $90,000, which is just insane. So we got together again and just said, hey, this is a great program. We're going to have to bring this back. And Advent Help came on as a sponsor, and so that's great. And they're sponsoring the program this year, and we're just super, super, super excited to get it going again.
Now, give the folks the particulars of how it works and what they can do if they want to get involved this year, if they missed out last year and said, man, I wish I had done it. How does it work?
Yeah, so I think last year a lot of people were under the misconception that it has to be somebody that's battling cancer like myself, but it doesn't really. It could be a caregiver. You could do it in honor of somebody that's passed away from the disease. It could be a nurse or a doctor that's really special to you that, maybe dealt with somebody in your family that's going through cancer. So it's really open to anybody that wants to go in and bid and put a name of somebody that they want to honor on the car. I think what's also really cool about this year is that we added the ARCA Menard series. So it's going to be running in the Menard series, the Xfinity series, and the Cup series at Kansas. And then it'll be running that same weekend in the Truck series at Martinsville. So that's really cool. So they have an opportunity to bid on. There's over 100 drivers that are involved this year, which is double what we had last year. So I think what happened last year is, all these guys ran these really cool names above their cars, and we're taking pictures with them and posting them on their social media. And then, the broadcasters were talking about it, and it became this really neat thing. And so you had these guys that were like, well, I kind of feel left out. I didn't know about it, and I didn't get to be a part of it. So this year when we called on the teams, it was everybody wanted to be a part of it, which is amazing. So over 100 drivers, and the auction runs through September 13th. And yeah, they can go to NASCARfoundation.org/cancer hero to bid. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be we're going to blow last year's numbers out of the water. I just feel it coming.
I guarantee you are. Absolutely. You mentioned a moment ago your personal battle with cancer. So update folks on where things stand with you right now, because I think it's been a while since we've heard, and I guess this is a situation where no news is good news.
Yeah, sometimes I keep the news to myself, because I think it can be really distracting for Martin in the middle of the season when things are going on with my health. So also, my health is I'm always I hate to say I'm always battling cancer, because I don't like that word. I don't look at it like a battle. I look at it like I have a chronic illness. I need to learn how to live with it. I have recurrent ovarian cancer, and so we know that I'm going to battle it the rest of my life. And so I'm doing okay right now. I just finished chemo like 2 months ago. So I haven't been off of it very long. My blood work came back a little wonky last month. So we're doing some testing right now to just kind of see what's going on. I had a scan on Friday. So I'm just praying that the results come back good. I've got to wait 5 to 10 days, which is really tough to do. So I'm just waiting on those results and just taking good care of myself. And, I haven't been, the fans always go on my social media and ask why I'm not traveling as much anymore. And obviously it's just because my health comes first. I need to take care of myself. So just living the least stressful lifestyle that I can live, and taking good care of myself, and eating healthy, and doing all my integrative stuff, and still being involved in the foundation, and having a life outside of cancer is super important to me. So I'm feeling good. So that's the good news. I'm feeling really good, but we'll see what the scan says, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, I imagine most everyone is taking extra precautions now because of COVID, but when you're going through what you're going through, it becomes even more important. So how safe do you have to be above and beyond what you have to do, you're required to do?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a real concern when you're a cancer patient, or for anyone that's immune compromised, right? We all have to be really careful what we're doing when we're out in public. So I don't go out in public that often, to be honest. I don't have a ton of interaction with the public, which is good. I also, we're really careful in our house. I've been battling, cancer for 7 years now. So Martin and I know the drill. We wash our hands constantly. We do everything we can to keep our house clean. We wear our masks. We do everything we can to protect ourselves. And, I think for Martin, it's more of a concern being at the track and worrying about bringing home something to me than it is really me being out in public and bringing something home to him, because I'm not out that much. We have had some charity events lately and some things out in the public, and we've just been really careful. We just went to the Dale Jr Foundation event, and it was outdoors. So I felt comfortable with it. Everybody kind of kept their distance. Everybody had masks on. So I think you just have to do what's best for you. I've done a really good job of taking care of myself and keeping my immune system strong. I still do that every day. I go weekly for vitamin C, ozone therapy treatments. I do a lot to take care of my immune system. And I will continue to do that. We have Catwalk coming up, as you know, on September 15th. So there's going to be a lot of people there. We're going to have the door open of the hangar. We're doing everything we can to protect our kids, to protect the drivers and make sure that everybody's taken care of. So we will continue to do that no matter what's the state of the rest of the world is like right now. I think, the world seems so heavy right now. There's just a lot going on. And I think it mentally can really be exhausting for people. So I do think that there is an aspect of life that, being out and being social with your friends is good for you mentally. And so we still try to do that. We just gather with our friends at our house outside and, hang out in the pool and make sure everybody's feeling good and nobody's been around anyone that's had COVID. And that's really all you can do.
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. You mentioned the Catwalk is coming up, or coming back this year, I guess I should say. For folks who aren't as familiar, give us a bigger picture of the work of the Martin Truex Jr Foundation, because there's more than just what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, wow. The girls have been so busy. I mean, there's a lot going on at the foundation right now. We are like full speed ahead with all of our events and all these different initiatives we have going on for the month of September. September is ovarian and childhood cancer awareness month. So it ends up being a really, really busy month for us. Not only with our events, but just everything that we try to do in our community to create awareness for both diseases. So Catwalk is coming up on September 15th. We're really excited about that. We did have to kind of tailor back our numbers a little bit this year, just because we didn't want to have as many people there in the building. But it's still going to be a great night. We met our kids last night. They are amazing. And they are so, so, so excited to be a part of it this year. And, we talked to a lot of the families, and they don't want to pull out at the last minute because they want their kids to experience that joy and happiness that they haven't had lately. And so I think that it's really important to still maintain some aspect of your life and to go out and do those things. And that's what we're trying to do with the foundation and with our kids. So Catwalk's on the 15th, just like it's always been. We weren't able to do it last year. We're really excited about this year. We have a ton of drivers participating. We have a lot of kids. Cole Swindell's coming to play again.
Wow.
We have a lot of really cool stuff happening right now. And we're really excited about that. And, we just recently, built the Sherry Strong Integrative Oncology Clinic in Charlotte. And we're working on opening up the Martin Truex Jr Emergency Department here at Novant Health at Exit 23. So we'll have 6 pediatric beds there. And we're working on a project with Advent Health that hasn't been announced yet. That's going to involve another Sherry Strong Integrative Clinic. So there's a lot going on, and it's
Yeah.
all good. It's a lot of work. I think people don't understand how much work it is to run a nonprofit. It's a lot of work, but yeah, we're really looking forward to it. I'm excited.
It's like somebody told me one time about the restaurant business. You don't own a restaurant, you marry it, and it's kind of, I guess, the same way with a foundation. But it's for a good purpose rather than just a paycheck, And I think that's what makes it all the more worthwhile. Sherry, before we wrap up, give the folks the particulars again on how they can get involved if they'd like to perhaps see their number above a driver's door at one of the upcoming races at Kansas and Martinsville.
Yes, they can go to NASCARfoundation.org/Cancer Hero to bid to buy the name above 100 different drivers' doors. So yeah, it's always fun to watch the bids as they happen, and as it winds down, towards the end of that bidding period, because people start to go crazy and it gets a little out of control. And I know last year I was bidding on Martin's car, obviously, because I wanted to have some friends of mine's name on there. And then somebody ended up, my brother-in-law ended up buying he works for a truck, and he ended up buying his truck and putting my name on it, I cried so hard when I found out that somebody even thought to put my name on a car. So I think for anybody that has a family member, everyone's touched by cancer. We all have somebody in our life that has been through it, or we know of a caretaker or medical provider or a nurse that's gone above and beyond in their medical field to make sure that cancer patients are taken care of. So everybody knows somebody that wants to be on a car. And so I think you're going to see just bids flying everywhere, which I love, because it's all going to a good cause. We split the proceeds with the NASCAR Foundation. And it's a really unique program. And I'm just so honored to be a part of it.
It's fantastic. Absolutely. And bigger and better than ever before. And I think this one's got more of a future than just this year as well, doesn't it? After the success of last year.
For sure. Yeah. It's kind of like Catwalk. We started really small, like with 50 people, we raised $7,000. And then, in 2019, we had 650 people and we raised $650,000. So
Wow.
yeah, I feel like it's one of those kind of programs. Like it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's how the Honor a Cancer Hero program is going to be for us. Every year it's going to get bigger and better. And I love that.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. It makes it all worthwhile. Sherry, thanks for your time and good luck.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sir, are you aware you were going 40 miles an hour? This is a residential area.
Sure, but I'm on my lawnmower? Wait, am I getting a ticket?
No, I've just never seen anyone top 9 miles an hour on one of those bad boys. And mow their entire lawn in 30 seconds? What got into you?
Well, it did fuel up at Sunoco this morning.
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. We've been doing it for American racing for over 50 years. Fuel your best.
We're joined now by Cliff Chanin. He's the Executive Vice President and Deputy Director for Museum Programs at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. And Cliff, the date is why we wanted to talk to you, and specifically through a NASCAR lens, because Richmond is the weekend for us that folks will be remembering. And interestingly enough, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is racing in the Xfinity race on the day on 9/11 at Richmond Raceway. And I'm curious, before we get too deep into the NASCAR side, tell me about the Memorial Museum itself and the work that you do.
Well, thank you very much, Woody, for taking the time for this today. We have opened the museum in May 2014, And it really has become, in those years, a place for gathering for people from around the world. That event on 9/11 was obviously targeted at the United States. It hit most strongly, of course, at New York, but people were watching this around the world and recognizing both the tragedy and the fact that the world was changing right in front of their eyes. It created an enormous amount of solidarity. And in fact, in our operations pre-COVID, we were running more than 3 million people a year coming to the museum. And 1/3 of them roughly came from overseas. This was a global event. We've never forgotten it. And so now we're 20 years later. And of course, that's the lifespan of a generation. There's a whole generation of kids that have been born after 9/11. And when you think about what that means, it means this critical moment in our country's history, which, as we know, is still in the newspapers every day. This critical moment is not a lived experience for these young people. They don't necessarily understand how it shaped the world that we live in. So we have really oriented ourselves at the museum towards this younger generation. How do we teach them what happened and what the significance of that is? And, you know, in that context, for the 20th anniversary, we've launched what we call the Never Forget Fund. And people who'd like to help us can go to neverforget.org. And it's really there that you'll see just what it means to this younger generation, that, you know, as with so many important things, it comes to the older generation to teach what's important and what younger people need to learn. And we've had, you know, enormous experience dealing with this, with families, with school groups and classes. And we feel like there's an incredibly receptive audience. The kids want to know, and we want to give them the information that they need.
That just blows my mind when you think about how many people were just little kids and don't really have a clear memory of what it was like then, or weren't even born yet. What kinds of things do you hear from folks who weren't able to see it for themselves or remember what was going on at the time when they come and visit? What kinds of things are they interested in and ask about?
Well, you know, it's funny, when we started this project, and I've been working on it since 2005, you know, in those days, everybody remembered 9/11. It was kind of unimaginable that, you know, you wouldn't actually have the memory of it. And now, of course, it's 20 years later and we have this generation. And, you know, what surprised us, we realized it made sense, but initially, we just have to tell the story. I mean, kids don't really know. And where do you start? You start with telling them what happened. One of the things that we found is extraordinarily effective, you know, young people want to know how it affected you. And so when we tell this story, we often get questions, well, where were you on 9/11? I happened to be at my home in Brooklyn that morning, so I don't have a particularly dramatic story, but they really want to know how it came into your life, because that's the way that they can relate to it. And so the core of many of our programs is really the first person voice. Whether it's a family member, whether it's a first responder, whether it's a survivor of the attack, whether it's one of our veterans who went off to fight because of what happened on 9/11. You know, these are the voices that really imprint this event in the experience and the minds of young people.
It's just amazing when you think that so many people, the experience they have with it now is, why do I have to do all this stuff when I'm going through the lines at the airport, you know, and don't have the context to realize, well, this is why you have to do all that stuff. And I think there are several things like that as well that we now just accept as normal, so to speak, whatever that means anymore, that weren't at the time.
You know, it's amazing. It's absolutely true about the kids and you know, what they need to understand, but it really extends beyond that. For example, those TSA officers who do the inspections at the airport, you know, they're getting younger and younger, as so many people going into first responder agencies are. And so it's not just kids, it's young people who are taking up the burden of service, who are taking on the responsibility of protecting us, and they don't always know what this story is. So one of the things that the museum has developed in recent years is training programs that try to explain the 9/11 story in the context of first responder service. And so we have programs with the FBI, with military groups, with first responder groups. They come to the museum when that's possible, or now virtually. And we tell them the story of 9/11 through the lens of first responder service and sacrifice. It again is something that I'm not sure we thought of at the beginning, but once time takes over and you have young people coming into service that is directly related to 9/11, but they don't necessarily see that connection, that becomes part of our job too.
Time always takes over. That's one certainty. One of the things that seems to always happen in the United States is when there is a tragedy or a big event, people sort of take sports as a rallying point and a way to kind of come back together. And NASCAR was no different. At that point, we were getting ready to race at Loudon, New Hampshire. That was postponed. Came back at Dover. It was actually September the 23rd, as many sports were trying to figure out how do we navigate this and how do we get back together. 140,000 people showed up. Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins the race, and people were like, okay, now we're kind of back to normal. So I'm curious if you have some anecdotes or some things that strike you as through the NASCAR lens. You were talking about looking at it through different lenses. I'm curious if there are some that relate to the NASCAR world.
Yes, well, it's really extraordinary what people need in this time of crisis. And many different sports, each for their fans, was able to rally something at a certain point in time. Because, think about back to those days and the shock that we all felt. There was clearly immediately the focus on what was happening at Ground Zero and elsewhere. But little by little, this emotion was just building and building and building. And it came out in all kinds of ways of sadness and everything else. We know that. But there's also a need for people to come together, for people to try to reach out to one another and be a community around the things that they love. And as we know, NASCAR fans are very, very tied to what they love. And this is very important to them. And you bring 130, 140,000 people together within weeks of 9/11. And even the point of bringing them together, can you do that safely? We take it for granted now, but that was a real question in the minds of the NASCAR organizers. Is it safe to go ahead? And they decided that whatever they were going to be able to do to protect the group, they were going to forge ahead. And so the victory by Dale Jr. on that day, it just created this enormous burst of emotion. And when he took that American flag, took his victory lap, riding around the track, I think it was just a moment for everybody to express the depth of their emotion, because finally there was some way to be together and to resume something that was so important to so many people.
When you look at the bigger picture in terms of this, I'm struck by how politically divided we all seem to be today. And remembering 20 years ago, everybody just rallied together. All else was secondary to us rallying together as a country. And I'm curious if we've kind of lost a little bit of that in us over these last 2 decades.
I think we're all worried about that. I actually, seeing people come to the museum, seeing people to connect to 9/11 from all kinds of perspectives and all kinds of places, I still believe that we have this within us, that we understand what solidarity means, and that there is a way that connects us to one another. I do want to, if you'd let me, Dale Jr. in announcing that in the race that he's going to run on 9/11 at the Richmond Raceway, he's going to decorate his car with some of the images that come from the museum and our campaign. And so I want to quote him, because he actually summarized that so beautifully. He said, "Today we face new challenges that test the resolve of our nation, which means the lessons of 9/11 are as important today as they were 20 years ago. Those lessons to unite, to take care of each other, support our frontline heroes, and commit to helping our communities recover, rebuild, and reimagine their futures." Now, who could possibly argue with that? And, he is, an icon of the racing world and has taken on this message on our behalf. We're extraordinarily grateful to him for that. But it also is something that I think deep down in so many of us, we understand the truth of what he said.
Absolutely, we do. Look ahead for us, if you will, because even 20 years later, there are still many of the first responders who are suffering with health issues, and many family members of the victims who are still mourning all this time later. What's down the road? What kinds of things are you folks doing to help them or steer them, if you will?
Well, you raise a really good point, and it has, I think, sometimes gotten lost that um, thousands of people, literally, came to work at the site in the 9 months that are known now as the cleanup period. And it really, let me give you an example or an idea of what these efforts were. From basically the afternoon of September 11th, it became clear that so many people were missing. And of course, in those first hours and even days, there was this desperate effort to see if we could rescue anybody. And that happened really very, very little. And so the reality became clear that so many of those missing people would not be coming back and they needed to be recovered. And that brought so much help and so much assistance to the site. And many people, of course, were recovered. But to this day, more than 1,000 families who lost someone on 9/11 in New York have not received any physical trace of their loved one. And so this is something that does not go away. During those 9 months of the cleanup period, and it formally ended on May 30th, 2002, working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 3 shifts a day, they removed 1.8 million tons of debris.
Wow.
All of that was sifted to look for remains, to look for property that could be returned to families, anything that would give a sense of what happened. It was a superhuman effort conducted by people who simply came to help because that was what was needed. And you think about what they had to do, what they had to confront in the course of that work, it's extraordinarily difficult to imagine. And so, unfortunately, many of these people in those years since have paid a terrible physical price because of what they inhaled and so on and so forth. And so the casualties continue to grow. The illnesses continue to grow. At some point, it will be true that more people will have died from the effects of working at the site after 9/11 than the number killed on 9/11. And so we have added to the memorial what we call the Memorial Glade, which is dedicated to the rescue and recovery workers. It's a place for them. And so our education programs are certainly oriented towards telling this story. It is something that, people need to understand just the depth of what people were willing to sacrifice on behalf of us all on that day and in the months after.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, tell us again about the Never Forget Fund and how folks can get involved and find out more information about the work that you guys are doing and what lies ahead.
Well, we did start the Never Forget Fund, which is a way of really focusing on educating the next generation. It's 20 years out. Nobody in high school has a memory of 9/11. Pretty soon, nobody in college will. Graduate school, onward and onward. Young people going into the military, young people going into first responder service. They are all part of the post 9/11 generation. So we're focusing our efforts on teaching them, and we ask people to join and support these efforts by going to neverforget.org.
Fantastic. That's Cliff Chanin. He is the Executive Vice President and Deputy Director for Museum Programs at the 9/11 Memorial Museum. Cliff, thanks for your time. It's, it doesn't seem like 20 years ago, but time really flies. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Woody.
Citywide to countryside, whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules has the value, selection, and industry-leading warranty to get you there no matter where the road takes you. Go to HerculesTires.com. There you can find the nearest authorized Hercules retail location to you. Plus, you can use the tire tracker to find out which Hercules tire fits your vehicle the best. That's HerculesTires.com. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
That wraps up our playoff edition of MRN Out Loud. We want to thank Denny Hamlin and William Byron for joining us on the program. And check MRN.com for all the latest news, scheduling information, and anything you want to find out about in the world of racing. Until next week, I'm Woody Cain saying thanks for joining us. That's all the time we've got on this week's edition of MRN Out Loud. Thanks for joining us. We'd also like to thank Sherry Pollex for being with us, as well as Cliff Chanin. And don't forget, we've got a special remembrance of our own on the Motor Racing Network coming up this weekend during our Richmond coverage. Check out MRN.com to find out more and to get all those air times for the weekend. Until we see you right back here next Thursday, I'm Woody Cain saying thanks for joining us.